And we are live. Welcome, Don Mayhew. We appreciate you sitting down with the editorial board for an endorsement interview for the School Board District 7 race. We'll just run around the horn quickly and introduce the other edit board members so you know who you're talking to. I'm Dave Bundy, editor. We've met before. Martha?
Martha Florence, and I'm one of the community folks that are on the editorial board.
Hi, Martha.
Hi.
I'm Robbie Estes. I'm the controller.
Hi, Robbie.
And I'm John Schreier. I'm one of our assistant city editors, and I'm also on the editorial board.
Hi, John.
All right. Well, Don, the first question is maybe an easy one. This last year has, at least from the standpoint of us in the news business, not looked like a particularly fun one to be in public service, but you want to run again. So why do you want to continue serving on the school board? And what experiences, attributes do you bring that make you the best candidate?
Well, thank you for the question. And also thank you for doing this. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you, respond to some questions. I think that journalism has been under attack. And I think that you guys provide a very important service. And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this. So thank you for that. I have been on the school board for 20 years, serving, representing Southwest Lincoln. I enjoy the work tremendously. It is an incredible challenge trying to align our resources with the needs of our children and our families. And I love doing it. You're right, the last year has been very tricky for elected people, but more so for our teachers, our staff, and for our kids and families. It's been a very difficult year. And it feels like, and I am hopeful that the world is starting to maybe turn the corner, starting to get back on the trajectory to normalcy. But I know that in our schools, in our classrooms, and in our homes, we're going to be dealing with the effects of the pandemic, I think, for years to come. I think that there are some other challenges too. Maybe we'll dig into these a little bit deeper later. There are some issues with funding. We're going to have some interesting exercises building our budget this year. And as I mentioned, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've served as president 4 times. We have passed 3 successful bond issues, hired 2 superintendents, dealt with some pretty big challenges. I feel like the experience that I have, the knowledge I have, the relationships that I've built could be of value to the district. And I wanted to offer that experience and leadership to the voters in my district.
All right, well, thanks. So as you see it, what are the key issues that the school board is going to be facing in the next few years?
Well, as I mentioned, the pandemic, I think, is going to be huge. We, it's a once in a lifetime thing, or perhaps even, a once in 100-year type of event. And there's no playbook. There's nothing we could point to, saying, well, last time this is what we did. There were a lot of things that we were doing in real time. For example, as soon as the pandemic hit, our staff had to virtually overnight, over spring break, come up with a 100% remote education option for our kids. And it was very challenging for our students. They have lost a lot of educational experiences and opportunities. We set some records for, as you guys reported, on our students getting D's or F's. And so we've lost ground. We've had an incredibly stressful year for our teachers and staff, and we need to start working our way back to normalcy. But also, I think we need to try to take what we have learned from the last year. And I think this is one of the things that we're going to be doing. What are the things that we kind of had to do, that we had in order to respond, but that ended up working really well, and that we can incorporate into our normal, the way we do business. So the pandemic, I think, is going to be a topic of interest and concern for years yet to come. Also, as I mentioned, we are dealing with inconsistencies with education funding. As a state, Nebraska is overly reliant on property taxes for education funding. In an average year, we get about half of our revenue from property taxes and about 20 to 25%, depending on the year, from state aid. In most other states, those numbers are flipped. So, of course, our property taxes are higher. And then, last year, when you look at the legislature cutting our state aid by almost $14 million. This year, I'm chair of finance. We're starting to work on our budget process. The legislature is lining up to cut us by another $20 million. It makes for some very interesting exercises in trying to build a solid budget. A couple of other things that I would talk about. Last year, I think perhaps a little bit lost in the pandemic was the the success of our bond. It passed by an almost 2-to-1 margin. We're building new schools. We've got a lot of work to do, and it's not just a matter of the buildings. There is also we've been doing quite a bit of work in terms of equity and trying to make sure that the decisions that we make, we are also, with all the other lenses that we're looking through, but looking through the lens of equitable outcomes for our students and using that to inform how we build the buildings and the programming for our students. So these are all things I think that we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about over the next few years.
All right, well, we sort of already touched on the next question, which was the short-term and long-term impacts of COVID. So if you feel talked out on that, we can skip it. But if you had anything else you wanted to add, Don, that you'd be welcome to.
Sure. Well, I talked a little bit about the effect. Let me talk a little bit about our response. And I did this briefly in my answers to the questions that were put in the voter guide. But one of the things that we've been doing is working on a major learning loss program that we're putting in place. And it's going to be implemented over the next couple of years. We're taking advantage of CARES money, or ESSER 2 it's called, to try to fund some of these initiatives. We're going to be working to expand summer school to all of our buildings K through 8. And effectively, I believe we're going to be looking to double the size of our summer school offerings. We're also going to be putting an interventionist in every building with a focus on reading and math. We're going to extend the school day in middle and elementary schools to try to get a little bit of extra help for the students who may need it. And we're also working on increasing our community partnerships with mental health providers to do wraparound services because kids have experienced trauma. And that's another need and challenge that we need to try to address. I think I see you looking at the clock, so I'll wrap. The last thing I'd mention is we've got our advancement via individual determination, our AVID program. And what that is it's a system to identify children who may be on the bubble of getting ready to slip through the cracks and trying to reach out them with interventions to help them be successful. We've been piloting that at Northeast. It's been pretty successful, and I think we're going to be looking to expand that. So there's a lot of work going on to try to get back what we've lost. And also we're able to use some of this CARES money to do what a lot of people asked us for last year, but we weren't able to do, and create a dedicated remote learning program. The teachers that are working in that program will be 100% dedicated to that instruction. They won't have to pull double duty in the classroom as well. So those are some of the things that we're working on.
Okay, just so you know, Don, we will keep this to 30 minutes, but you're doing fine on time. So next question, you are safely ensconced wherever you are, and we're a couple blocks away from the Courtyard Marriott, where the state board is holding its meeting right now to get input on its health standards. Now, the state health standards, I understand, don't impose, their local control remains. So that's not going to be, whatever gets decided is not necessarily going to translate directly to LPS. But what are your thoughts on the first draft? Is it too much too soon for younger students? How would you like to tweak anything that happens in LPS based on what the state's recommending?
Well, the first thing that I would point out, as you mentioned, it is a draft, and our staff is doing analysis on it to see what effect it would have on us. The other thing you said is also very correct. When the state board comes down with requirements on math and reading, those we have to follow. With health, we do have some discretion. I can tell you I think it's difficult to respond to some of the specifics when they are still being worked out. As I mentioned, our staff is still working out what the impact on our current curriculum would be. I can say that in general, knowing Dr. Rauner as I do, and he is one of the people that is serving in an advisory capacity and the work that's being done. I know that the work that Bob is doing and the other folks that he's working with, all of the doctors and psychologists and the medical professionals, what they're trying to do is respond to the fact that we have kids in our buildings, in our classrooms, who have needs that are not being met. They don't fit standard definitions, and they have challenges that are not always being recognized and addressed by the place where they should be the safest and the most welcome, outside of their homes, and that's in the school building. So I know that this is an effort to try to identify and address the needs that our kids are having. So I very much support the work. I am looking forward to seeing what they come up with in the final version of these guidelines, and we'll make a determination then what the effect on our curriculum will be.
All right, well, that was the question ended up being more timely than I would have anticipated just because of the hearing today. Did anybody on the edit board have any questions they wanted to add on that topic? Just because. All right.
John has one.
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to ask Don, there's obviously a criticism in the community that LPS is too reliant on property tax dollars to fund its operation. I know you talked some about the state aid being decreased in recent years.
Mhm.
What would you tell somebody who has that gripe about the property tax on their home rising to fund LPS operations, and they may not have a kid in school, they may not see that need? What would you tell them?
Sure. Well, I would tell them what I've been telling folks for the last 20 years. It's not just LPS, it's all of Nebraska. We are overly reliant on property taxes. Right now in Lincoln, LPS is about 62, 63% of every property tax dollar, depending on the year. Back over 100 years ago when LPS was first created and it first levied property taxes to pay for education, they were at 59 cents out of the property tax dollar. So the system right now is set up for the schools in Nebraska to get most of the property tax dollar. One of the things I think that people do is they get their tax statement, their tax bill, and open it, and it's shocking. And I'm one of the people that is shocked when I open that. Property taxes here are onerous. There's no question about that. But I think they look at that and they assume that Lincoln must be overspending. And that's not the case. There are districts in Nebraska where overspending is an issue, but Lincoln, on a per pupil basis, is one of the lowest spending districts in the state. And as another way to look at it as an example, our general fund levy is $1.05. And so if we were to shave $1 or a penny off of that, go down to $1.04, which we've done in the past when we could, that would shave about $2.5 million off of our budget. We would have to find a way to absorb that loss, and it would save the average homeowner about $20 a year. So let's go crazy. Let's knock a nickel off of our levy. That takes us down to $1. Now we are shaving $12.5 million off of our budget, on top of the $20 million that we're losing in state aid and the other challenges that we're facing. And it saves the average property taxpayer about $100 a year. Now, if I was walking along on the sidewalk and I saw $100, I would bend over and pick it up. I would take it. But when you've got a $3,200 property tax bill, $100 is not much property tax relief, and the effect would be very difficult for the district to deal with. So the reality is we have to educate folks on the fact that education funding is set up in Nebraska to be overly reliant on property taxes. Have a governor and a legislature that have the political will to fix education funding and close the sales tax loopholes as one idea and get it turned around. I mean, we've got a lot of data and a lot of good history that shows that as our state aid goes down, property taxes, especially with valuations, go up to make up the difference. If when we increase our state aid, property taxes go down. So the only way to achieve meaningful property tax relief is we're going to have some kind of a legislative solution to fix education funding. We do what we can locally to try to keep things reasonable. And I can point to the times in the past where we have levied less than the maximum that we could to try to provide what relief we could. But it's not going to be significant enough until we get some type of a legislative solution.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Martha.
Don, I have just a quick question, or just kind of get your opinion on the issues of diversity and inclusion, as it relates to teachers, to the folks that work in LPS. How do we include families in getting engaged? Because we talk about poverty, but oftentimes it's not just the kids. We also have to get the families and the parents engaged in that. So, any thoughts about from the school board's perspective, how to get that going, or how to educate folks, because we are going to have a gap. You know, our summer slide has also been almost a year now for some of our kids. So, and oftentimes if you're not culturally sensitive, it'll slide even more. So, just curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, I've got a number of thoughts, and I appreciate very much the question. I grew up very poor, and I remember there were times where, as a child, things that maybe a lot of people take for granted, that for me and my family were incredibly difficult. And I remember every once in a while something would come into my awareness, like about school lunches or about a field trip that I knew I wasn't going to get to go on because of cost or things like this. And I remember every once in a while just wishing that the people who were in a position to make decisions would decide something that would help me out just a little bit, that would, take a little bit of the pressure off, or make my life just a little bit less difficult. That being said, well, and so then when I grew up, I decided that I wanted to become one of the people in the positions to make those decisions. And so the idea of trying to make choices that are good for families and for children is something that very much informs my board service. All that being said, I am a middle-aged white guy who lives a very privileged existence. I acknowledge that. I own that. I know that there are a lot of people who have had experiences that I've never had to deal with. And I think it's important for us to have that kind of representation and feedback at the table when we are making decisions. One of the things that we have been doing, equity has been kind of a focus for the board, especially the last couple of years. We brought in the Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center. We've been consulting with them. They have been helping us to make our effects at inclusion and diversity more effective. We recently went through training for the full board. There's also been training for our central office staff. And one of the things that we are trying to do is make sure that when we are making these big decisions, we are looking through the lens of equity and the effects of kids on our decisions, trying to move towards equity-based more, trying to increase and improve our equity-based instructional strategies. And part of what that includes is we've got monthly professional learning modules for our principals, where we've got training for them to try to raise consciousness and increase awareness around racial issues that they then pass that on to their staff. And next year, we're going to start working on trying to connect those instructional practices, connect that awareness to our instructional practices. So we still have so much work to do. There were a lot of great conversations that rose out of some of the things that were happening last summer. We had a great conversation about school resource officers, many conversations, and I think that we need to continue to push ourselves. I think we're doing better than we've done before, but I think we still need to do so much more to try to make sure that the people who are affected by the decisions we make, that their voices are being heard, and that our decisions are seen through that lens of how that is going to affect everybody. I mean, we say all means all, and we mean it, and so we continue to to focus on it. I think you improve what you tend to look at and what you tend to measure, and this has been a district goal for us for the last year, and I think we're going to continue to see those efforts increase.
Thank you.
I have one final question. Does anybody else have anything? All right. Well, Don, my last question for you, this is probably the easiest one. What didn't we ask that you wish we would have? This is your chance to climb the soapbox and say anything you want.
We've talked about my experience a little bit, and I guess I would like to dig into that again a little bit. One of the things over the last year I was trying to decide, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's this huge unpaid part-time job. And it has an effect on me and my family. And that's not poor me, but it's a big commitment in time. And I feel that the experiences that I've had, as I mentioned, with hiring superintendents, with passing bond issues, with working with our city council, county commissioners, legislators, the relationships that I've built with our federal representatives, the problems that we've tried to solve, the challenges that we have tried to address. I think that all gives me a perspective and an experience that, again, that I'm hoping would be valuable to the district as we still have some big challenges to face. And I wanted to, again, offer that experience and that perspective and that leadership to voters if that resonates with them. So for that, I would say that LPS is the best district in the country. I love the work that we do. I love the work that our staff does. I love it when kids come up to me and they talk about the great experiences that they had. I also love it when kids come up and tell me that they had a bad experience, because then that informs future decisions. So I'm very invested in this work and in the outcomes that we have for kids and for families. I've got a lot of energy and ideas, and I would like to continue doing it if the voters will send me back.
All right. That sounds like a wonderful ending note, unless somebody wants to ask another question. All right, then it's a wonderful ending note.
All right.
All right, Don, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And we appreciate everybody who sticks their neck out to serve publicly and to run for office. So thank you very much. And we will post this after we do the interview with the person you're running against. So we thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks again, guys. Nice talking with you.
Have a great weekend.